Hello there, fellow geeks and geekettes, and welcome to the second part of my quarantine reading list video. Finally. Yes, my hair is starting to look a little bit wild because all the hairdressers and the barbers are closed, as well as almost everything except for grocery stores and post offices and drugstores and pharmacies and things like that. Things that you need for, really need for everyday living. Well, I finally kicked myself to finishing the top 10 reading list for the, kind of self-quarantine times that we have found ourselves in. Because I really didn't, there was a lot that I wanted to put on the list, and since originally I intended to make this a top 10 reading list, I really only could pick the remaining 5. So I've tried to pick books from as many genres as possible, because firstly I myself I'm quite a prolific reader, and I like many genres, many formats, and many media. And secondly, each and every reader might find his or her own that he or she would like to pick and read. Now, first I had to pick the most iconic superhero, I would say, and that's Superman. I've got this particular book in an absolute format, but I really didn't want to pull it out of my shelf. For those of you who don't know, but I suppose that people who watch these kind of videos know, an absolute format is this deluxe hardcover, oversized format, collected edition of a particular book. That's not really a read that you would take to a bus or a tram. It's really, it is really reading for home. But I also tend to double dip and triple dip, which means that I like to own one book in different formats. So I've just picked the first issue of Superman, or All-Star Superman, written by Grant Morrison and illustrated by Frank Quitely. Now, there are many good Superman books, but as well, everything that Grant Morrison writes, I would say that Superman, or All-Star Superman, is, at least in my eyes, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, is the best Superman comic book ever written. For me, which means that it is my favorite Superman comic book. It's really, as with everything that Grant Morrison touches, it's very complex, but at the same time quite enjoyable. Not only and the art of Frank Quitely just complements it more than enough. Look at that. That's just a beautiful representation of Superman, and that's my kind of Superman, really. How I imagine Superman to look like, really big and really bulky. I don't really like when somebody draws Superman being, muscular, but like lean. No, I don't really imagine Superman being lean. He has to be like, really buff. So, like this. So I like, for instance, this representation of Superman, or Superman from The Dark Knight Returns, or the way how Alex Ross draws or paints Superman, or Superman as portrayed by, I think it was by, Tim Sale in Superman for All Seasons. All these Superman are really buff and really bulky, but as far as the story goes, not only, I'm not going to tell you anything really about the story, I don't want to spoil it, but it's everything that Grant Morrison writes. Not only will it help you escape reality and provide you with a couple of, well, if you take your time, a couple of hours of entertainment, but also it'll make you think. So that's like pick number 6, All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Now, the second one I've also got in oversized hardcovers and in paperbacks, because sometimes you just want to, me. Now, it's just, once again, it's just me. Sometimes I want to enjoy the art and, like really look at it on an oversized page. But sometimes I just want to sit or lie down in my bed comfortably with a book in my hands, and sometimes it's just not that practical to wield a huge omnibus or an absolute edition or even an oversized hardcover edition when you want to have a complete comfort. Sometimes a paperback is the way to go. So for this video I've picked the first paperback collection of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series published by IDW. It's the latest one, the newest one. I love it completely and utterly. If you know anything about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I dare say you will love it. Although it's very different from the original Mirage Studios Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and of course very different from the movies and from the original, animated cartoon. For me, I love all of these things, and I really don't compare them. They can't really be compared, because each and every of these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles interpretations is very different from each other. You have got very different experience when you read the original black and white or colored, newly colored Mirage Studios TMNT by Kevin Eastman and Peter Ladd. You've got a completely different experience when you watch the cartoon and the films, and you've got a very different experience when you read the new IDW Studios Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This being said, it's still quite enjoyable. The artwork is of course modern. It's quite different from the original TMNT. Sometimes there is an artwork done by Kevin Eastman, but he mostly wrote the first issues, and he did most of the covers. Like you can see here, this is quite clearly Kevin Eastman, as well as here, this is Kevin Eastman, the cover here. Well, the Shredder, of course, appears in the book as the main villain of the Turtles. So I don't really want to spoil it, but I would say the main difference from the Mirage, or between the Mirage Studios and this one, is that the turtle, in this book they deal with reincarnation, and really the turtles in the past were actually samurai in ancient Japan, just reincarnated into these mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's quite, if you want to escape reality, if you want to read a good comic book with decent art and a good story, I do recommend, like, really any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles read. Now, I've picked Hellboy because he's one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. Once again, not your typical superhero, but Hellboy has been extremely popular in the Czech Republic for the last at least 20 years. I know that Mike Mignola started publishing Hellboy in the early 1990s, but really in the Czech Republic, Hellboy has been very much popular here for the last 20 years, and he has become instantly one of my favorite comic book characters, not only because he is quite funny, and the artwork, especially in the first collected editions when Mike Mignola was still both drawing and writing it, his simple style is, shrouded in shadows. It's just perfect for this kind of character, but also because Mike Mignola is an extremely clever man who shares many of my own passions, and that includes myths and legends. I am very well versed in mythology and legends of, ancient cultures from all around the world. And if you know anything about these things and read Hellboy, on every page you can see something taken from this or that mythology, this or that legend, or from this or that historical era. And if you've seen the first two films with Ron Perlman, Hellboy, well, that's very different from the films. It's just nothing like the films. The second one tried to approach the comic books a bit more. A lot of people didn't like it. I liked it, but I think that the biggest mistake of the new film was the editing. That they just didn't, edit it properly in the end. But that's a matter for another conversation. But I do recommend Hellboy by Mike Mignola. Now, there's one more thing. As I said, I do love legends and mythology from all around the world, and my favorite is the ancient myths and legends of the ancient Scandinavians. This is Edda, which is a collection of ancient poetry, mainly mythological and legendary poetry, written by unknown authors. This is a translation from Old Norse into into the Czech language, obviously. But I'm sure that in your languages, wherever you're from, you will find translations into your language. So I think that in these times, we do need to look back to what our ancestors were living like, and were thinking like, and were writing about, and really we should reflect about what the modern society did wrong. And I always say that myths and legends will never grow old, because we can always learn from the past, however far into the past we go. So this has always been my passion: myths and legends, old stories and old poems. I do write about old things as well, and one of my main, I'll put it this way. Academically, because I'm a teacher and a PhD student, I focused on the oldest Germanic literature, on fantasy of the 20th century, and on American comic books. And that's really 1/3 of what I am interested in, both personally and academically. So once again, this is only my opinion. So whatever myths and legends you like, just grab them and read them, learn from the past, lose yourself in the past, and try to survive this uneasy period, as well as the ancient Norse gods did when they were preparing for Ragnarok. And the last one, to lighten up a bit, I do recommend Garfield. It's really a read for everybody. I think that kids will enjoy Garfield. I think adults will enjoy Garfield. I think that's a read for everybody, every age group, every gender, or any group, anybody really, any individual. It's fun, it's witty, sometimes it's quite dark and gritty, sometimes it's quite depressing, but everybody knows Garfield. He is a fat cat who hates Mondays and loves lasagna. He speaks, he talks, but humans can't understand him. That's like the simplest and the stupidest explanation of what Garfield is, but I think that's quite sufficient. It's just these very short sketches, very short comic strips that I think will help you get through these dark times more easily, and will help you laugh a bit more than we probably do these days. So definitely read Garfield. If you've got where to get it, just get it. And I will cut it short here because I've already been talking for too long. These are my recommendations. Please do tell me your recommendations in the comments down below. And that's all from me now. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye!